Hello everyone, nubkeks here. Welcome back to Nub Raids. Today, prepare yourself for what's it? I can't even think of the word. Reacception or something. Multiple reactions. We are going to be reacting to J Gigs reacting to Colred Plays. So I actually saw this pop up on my feed this morning, and I was like, wow, that's actually really interesting. I'd love to watch this video. Colred is pissed off at Plarium. Let's talk about it, right? This went out while I was asleep. Old J Gigs over in Australia, posting at crazy hours. Um, yeah, I thought this is I believe this is about the Titan event, right? And how they really did screw people over by saying this bonus summon rush is coming, having it in the game for ages, obviously having the Titan event planned in advance as well, but not disclosing that this bonus summon rush would be part of the Titan event until literally it was too late for you to do anything different, right? So it was yeah, it really felt very bad. So let's see how this goes. I'm a big fan of J Gigs, big fan of Colred. I don't know. Maybe this is too much. It's gonna be a really long video. Let me know if you like this or if it's too much. But I wanted to watch this, and I said, hey, why not watch it with you guys? So let's give it a go, and let's see how it goes. Like the video
the first
as well.
3 minutes of the video.
Like Colred's.
He's pretty fired up. So let's see how it goes.
I want to get off on the right foot, and I'm going to start by explaining to you why people are angry with you right now, because I don't think you saw this coming. And I'm pretty sure you don't entirely get the anger. That's the thing that drives me nuts.
Has YouTube been doing that to anybody else?
Off on the right foot. And I'm going to start by explaining to you why people are angry with you right now, because I don't think you saw this coming. And I'm pretty sure you don't entirely get the anger or the outrage that's going on.
Interesting.
So,
J Gigs think.
I don't know if I feel the same way as far as they didn't see this coming. I think that they've done this enough times that they know. And there's been some speculation over the years that they do this type of stuff on purpose. One, to drive sales of shards, of course. But two,
interesting. I mean, I'll jump right in. It's like there's been some speculation about everything. Plarium, like, my favorite ones are like Plarium is messing. Like the developers are like hacking into my individual game to change my clan boss rates, so I don't get shards, so I pay money. Don't think so. There's a lot of silly speculation. I do think that this one is pretty well founded though. General thoughts. I do see Colred's point where I think that possibly like it's just they did something stupid, right? That they didn't even think about, oh, people will get angry. Like, you know, it's just it is possible to be really dumb sometimes, and just for something that seems very obvious sort of pass unnoticed. Like maybe they changed around the events at some point, included the bonus summon rush in the Titan event, but we're doing it in a rush. Someone in a meeting didn't notice, and they just like, yep, okay, cool, signed off on it, and it went through, and they hadn't even realized. I do think it is possible for it to be a mistake, but then again, you would think it more likely that this sort of stuff is planned far enough in advance that it seems very suspicious. And yeah, I think it also forces people to participate in more summon events. So there is a very big motivation for Plarium to be dishonest here if they think they can get away with it. But I mean, the thing is, clearly, you destroy a huge amount of goodwill. And when you do events like this that clearly screw people over, that, like, there will be people that stop playing the game because of this, right? It will happen. So yeah, there's big motivations to do it, but then there's also big repercussions to doing it. Let's see what J Gigs has to say. I'm probably more on his side here. It seems pretty sus, but
because there must be something positive in the analytics. This is a speculation anyway. There must be some positive reaction in the analytics to there being outrage at certain points in the timeline, because it just seems that there's no way that in almost 6 years they haven't figured out how to not piss their players off.
I mean, it's that's the saying, isn't it? There's no such thing as bad press, right? It's a little bit tricky as well, in the sense, like, do they intentionally create? Here's the thing: if you are a game developer, do you need to intentionally create outrage? And bearing in mind that outrage can spiral out of control as well and have very negative repercussions for your game. It's possible that in fact, I think it's probably fairly likely. Like I said, no bad press isn't bad, right? I think a small amount of outrage can actually be okay, probably, in terms of analytics. I think J Gigs is right there. It probably does some benefit, a small amount, but that's really playing with fire. Would you actually encourage that as a developer? Probably not, because again, there's already a huge amount of mechanisms at play that are already going to create a huge amount of, like, you guys are on YouTube, yeah? Like, you have seen YouTube. You have been on social media. You've been on, like, Twitter or whatever before, right? Like, you understand what people on the internet are like, yeah? Massive outrage is going to happen even if nothing happens, right? That's just what people do online. That's how they are. You know, as a developer, you could probably try to stop as much outrage as possible. You could try to minimize it to be the most outrage averse company, and you will still create outrage without meaning to. Because again, like, social media thrives off of it. So yeah, I'm not sure that they would actually. Yeah, I personally, I would say if I was a game developer, I would start avoiding outrage. Like, that's just unpleasant. You know, as someone who's been a victim of outrage in the past, like as a YouTuber, which is a much smaller thing, very unpleasant. It's not something you want to, my opinion, ever. But we'll see.
Now, as a mobile game developer, you're never going to make everybody happy. It is literally impossible to make everybody happy in a mobile game. In any audience, really, but especially a mobile game audience, you cannot please everyone. No. It's literally impossible.
Yeah, like if you nerf Trunda, for instance, some people will be happy, some people will be furious. If you don't nerf Trunda, some people will be happy, some people will be furious. There's no easy win. Everything is a tough decision, which is why I feel like in that case they've made no decision. But yeah, just in general, you can never make everyone happy.
You can have a generally positive sentiment. I've seen it many times, and it's the way that you engage with your players. Plarium has a habit, a well-known tactic of theirs to entrap you in situations where you are either going to buy shards or you are not going to participate in the thing. Or you know what I mean? They're going to milk you of your shards in some way, and then drop something that's going to make you need more shards than you're going to have to participate. So I don't know if I agree that they didn't expect this. I think they know very well by now what types of things are going to piss people off for the most part. I think
again, I don't think they're intending to piss people off, but I think that again, it's something that even happens to me sometimes. Like, you know, just making, like, I don't even try really to make clickbait stuff. In fact, I try to avoid clickbait in general. Some of you might be saying, no, be the most clickbaiting shit ever, but I genuinely try not to have clickbait. And if I have like a clickbait title, I will try to deliver on it in a big way. Like, I think one of the most clickbait things I ever did, I was quite proud of it, I thought it was great, was Shamrock is better than Duchess. Obviously outrageous, and people are gonna, you get the outrage clicks, right? But in that video, it was showing that, oh, Shamrock actually, for a Hydra run, it was like he actually is bringing up like a pretty, at the time, it was a very popular team. It's like he's actually better, you know, so long as somebody doesn't die, of course, but he has Revive on Death, you know, it's like, yeah, it's actually, you know, better. So that was the point, was it's an outrageous video, but it tries to deliver on the promise. That to me is important. You know, you don't want to have like crazy clickbait and then have it be total bullshit. Like, in my opinion, that's just gonna drive people away and make them feel really bad. But sometimes, just by, you know, making relatively clickable titles and good stuff, sometimes accidentally stumble into clickbait without even meaning to. I think a good one I had recently, a good example, was I did a video which was just speculation on like, oh, what might be coming up next, right? That was it. It's like, what's coming next? And I didn't even think about it, because I was like, you know, it's just a fun speculation video. But like a bunch of people got really pissed off and like, this is clickbait, like thinking that it wasn't speculation. I was like, I thought it was really obvious. Like, it was in the middle of the night at some random time. We'd already had the news for the week. And like the video never set out to be anything other than like, this is a fun speculative video. And like a lot of people enjoyed it, but then there was a very vocal minority that were really pissed off. And I was like, shit, I didn't even mean to, like, I didn't even think about it. So I can't remember how I started on this tangent. Let's go back to the video.
Maybe they thought people were going to be stoked on Siege. You know what I mean? I don't think it's impossible for them to be caught off guard, but I think stuff like this, I think they've got this mapped out so clearly at this point that they know exactly what they're doing. So
yeah, I do feel like with this Titan event, I'm expecting a Freya Deck of Fate at the end of it. I think it's very clearly designed to make you pull more shards than you otherwise would. I think that's absolutely true in terms of how they design their events. Now, again, I think that having this bonus summon rush in the calendar, but giving you information, like basically presenting it as if you're giving the information. Here's the bonus summon rush. You know about it in advance. Here it is on our official event page. Here's the information, everything that you need to know. Being like, here's the information. You can trust this, but then withholding perhaps the most crucial part of it, which is, oh, it's part of the Titan event, which is coming up next. I think that is really bad form because it's saying, here, you can trust me. And in the meantime, I'm stabbing you in the back. I think that's really bad. Like I said, it genuinely might be accidental. It might have been on purpose. I think as a general point, there's no question though that, you know, they do try to bait you with these shard events. And I think like this Titan event is like coming in with a bonus summon rush with a really, really good extra legendary event and the faction unities. That's clearly something you really want to pull on. And an easy champion chase at the weekend is looking like that's going to be easy to pull on. And then if they do a Freya Deck of Fate, that's easy to pull on. And you can end up over capping on Titan points and pulling on everything and having no shards. Or buying shards is obviously what they want, because that's how they make money. They want you to buy shards. So creating lots of good events back to back that really or like a typical thing they do as well, or used to do, would be like, here's a 2x Ancients. Okay, here's an extra legendary event from Ancients. And here's a guaranteed champion from Ancients. That's something they did a couple of years ago very regularly. They would, again, clump all the shard events together. I guess it didn't make them as much money as they wanted because they stopped doing that. But it is obviously, it is, of course, it's a money-making tactic, and there's no question about it.
Going on right now. But people in my Discord community aren't happy. I've seen chat in-game, both clan chat and global chat. People are not real happy with you. This is a video that was put out today by Saf from the HH Gaming Network. That's his channel. And it's entitled New Thor Titan Event Trickery. And you can see a big deceived here. Although, quick note to Saf's editor.
Spelled wrong?
That's not how you spell deceived.
Whoops.
But the reason people are
except after C, man, come on.
upset is pretty simple. You omit facts that would be helpful to your player base. And it's clear that your intention in that omission is to create additional FOMO and cause people to spend more money. And you're constantly changing the rules that you yourself make. And as a result, players feel like they're standing on shifting sands. And we don't trust you to look out for us. It feels like an adversarial relationship. And I'm going to...
Here's the question I would have. Like, again, their ultimate goal, of course, every game company, every business, ultimate goal is to make money. Consider the negative impact on players about this. And like I said, players quitting and an erosion of trust as well, for whatever trust there was in the first place. Like, I can easily imagine like the CEO, like of just like Plarium coming in and be like, what the hell, guy? Like, never do this again, you know? Like, you can easily see that, because this is the sort of thing that could easily have now a negative impact on their income, on their sales, on their player base, because it is so bad. And like, you could see it be like again, either a mistake or someone trying to be clever, even like a manager, like even potentially someone higher up in the game, like planning events, trying to be clever. Like, I could easily see them being in like serious shit from like the CEO or someone, like someone properly higher up comes in, proper oversight, and it's like, what? This is like, why would you do this? You know, it's, yeah, you can see someone actually get in trouble for this sort of thing.
I explain this very specifically so you understand exactly
they
what
won't
I'm
be
talking
happy
about.
this.
So real quick, I just want to follow up to the reason that I say all of what I just said is the whole reason Wait Shadow Legends as a video exists. This is what they do. So the whole joke is you should probably wait before you play this game at all, because there's probably something coming that's going to make you regret playing it right now. That's the joke of it, right? But it's not really a joke. It's you either have to just accept that you don't get to participate in half of this game, or you have to spend a bunch of money. Like, that's just
that. By the way, that is what you have to do. You have to accept that you cannot do. That's sort of raid basics. Like, you can't do every summon event. You have to skip some events, right? That's just the basics of it. Because as he said, if you want to do everything, you cannot do it for free. It's a free to play game. Pretty obvious. Like, I think we get how that works. It's when it goes sort of beyond that becomes a problem. Like when it's too coercive, shall we say? When it's too punishing to a free player. That's, in my opinion, that's bad. Like, a free player, you obviously should be putting in a bit more effort. That's kind of fine, right? Because the game is obviously going to pressure you to spend at least a little bit. But it's finding that right pressure point, I suppose. Because yeah, I mean, like, no one's going to make an incredible game that's perfect free to play, and like spending gives you no benefit at all. Like at the very least, it's gonna be like cool cosmetics that people are gonna want to pick. Um, but like, yeah, no one's gonna put out like an amazing game just for free unless they're rich or they don't care. I don't know, but they're gonna try and make money.
That's how Raid's designed.
Let's go look at your Plarium Play events calendar. Here we are. Yesterday, I looked at this events calendar, and I was talking to my viewers about this Summon Rush and how the Feyhammer Titan event overlaps the end of the Thor Fusion event, and that had never happened before. And so what happened 2 weeks ago was you launched the Thor's Fusion event, and you gave us a calendar of events, and based on everything that we've known about you and your history and the history of Fusion events, we believed that this Summon Rush was a place where we could potentially get extra fragments to complete the Thor.
Yeah. It's so bad. Like when you think about this, it really is so bad. Yeah, just presenting some of the information in an official calendar. Here you go. And like it feels like a slap in the face, especially because going into the Thor Fusion and kind of looking at it, going, "Wow, this actually is a step in the right direction. This actually looks great. Extra fragments in there, fantastic." So there's a little less stress about doing the Thor Fusion. If you miss some of the events, you can pick up some fragments in the bonus Summon Rush. Or I could skip some of the early Summon Rush and go for the bonus one instead. I don't know what's going to be in there in the terms of champions, but you know, I could take that risk. It felt like fairly fair, disclosed up front. Very positive feeling. Again, it's like shaking hands. Yeah, great. Trust. This works great. And then it's shaking hands, trust, stab you in the back. Haha, surprise. It was part of the Titan event all along. Now you've got to pull in this as well. Ha 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 ha. And yes, there's more stuff in the Titan event coming up, but we won't tell you that. That stuff is secret. So, but even if we did tell you, would we be concealing crucial facts? You'll never know. Ha ha ha.
If we messed up during the 2 weeks of the Thor Fusion event and missed one of those events, if we didn't complete something, this was going to be a chance at the very end to spend some shards and get some additional fragments for Diana and complete the Thor Fusion.
Quick note, too, on the way that they do their fusions. Again, as someone that's been playing these games for over a decade now, I've played a lot of these games, and a lot of other games, when they do something like this, when there's an event, some of them just do the same type of thing Raid does, where you farm frags through the course of different events. Let's say Watcher of Realms, for example. If I'm not mistaken, in Watcher of Realms, through the course of an event, there were enough opportunities to farm frags that you could farm a copy and an extra copy. There was so much room for you to not have to be on this game every second of every day farming.
Raid, it makes it really difficult. Like, you got to play so much to participate in Raid. I think where JKigs is going to go, and it is what I see in other games, is that just minor participation is enough. Like, and it's like almost, you know, the special event champion or event thing will be your reward for just sort of like being there, hanging out. Like, it's very easy. Raid makes things really hardcore. I think it's a huge negative, puts a lot of people off. At the same time, I also think it's a huge positive as well, where it makes Raid very hardcore. If you like hardcore games, you're going to like this. If you don't, you're not going to like it. But I think they intentionally designed the game to be hardcore. I think they go too far, but then again, they're massively successful. So clearly these practices that we might not like do pay off, and I think that's why they happen.
To finish it. And that's such a respectful acknowledgement that you're a human being that has a life and other commitments, right?
I disagree as well. I don't think the games are like, we just have so much respect for our players. Like, we want to make, you know, this event easy just because, gosh, you're just a great guy. It's nothing to do with respect. It's just practicality, right? It's in there like, okay, we just want to make this easy but a good reward so that people will log in to get it. And, you know, we're trying to capture a casual player base. It's like, it's just a different way of making money. It's nothing to do with respect. It's nothing to do with, you know, moral goodness. It's just a different strategy to make money off of you. It's no better or worse morally. It's just the same thing, right? It's just, we're making money and this is our strategy. Simple as.
Maybe that's too much. Maybe that makes it too easy and boring. But for the Thor Fusion, for example, if this last Summon Rush aside, you couldn't miss an event. You couldn't miss one single event. If your internet went out, you had a flat tire on the way home, there are any series of even minor inconveniences in your actual life could have cost you this whole event. You could have farmed it perfectly for the first however many events, and the last one or two, something goes wrong, and you can't get in the game. Like,
with the Thor one, I mean, they do have the 50 bonus fragments, so I think that's not, maybe I misunderstood what he's saying. So it's not quite true. You could skip like 2 events, basically. Or I mean, if you skip the one big summon rush at the end, you could only skip the one. But you could skip a couple. So I think that's a step in the right direction, because there have been fusions in the past where literally you did have to do everything, and if you miss one thing, you were screwed. With this, you could miss a couple, which I think is good. Like I said, I actually agree with Jay Giggs that it should be further in the other direction. And there used to be fusions back in the past. You used to be able to skip multiple events. Like, you could. You'd have to do most of them, but there was much more flexibility in which events you would do, which ones you could skip, lots more redundancy. They made fusions a lot worse. I actually thought the Thor fusion, until this debacle, the Titan event, I think the Thor fusion was a bit better than some of the ones they've been doing recently. And the first summon event was also very easy compared to what they've done recently. So they did some good things with this, actually. But yeah, until this, I would have said it's a step in the right direction until this bonus summon event fiasco.
There's no margin for error except the summon rush at the end. It's always, if they give you any opportunity to make up anything, it's a summon rush, because that's the thing you can buy. That's the thing you can give them money to correct.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah.
It is so obnoxious to handcuff you to this game for weeks at a time every time they do a fusion. Every now and then they give you a little wiggle room. I don't know why it's every now and then. I don't know if it's to keep you on your toes, but we go into every fusion, all of us go into every fusion not knowing what to expect. We don't know what the point thresholds are going to be. We don't know if it's going to be one that you can miss an event or not. We don't know how intense the summon events are going to be. We don't know anything about it. Every single time they keep you on your toes, they keep you handcuffed to this game. It's obnoxious. It's genuinely obnoxious behavior as a game developer. So it can be done differently and successfully. I know Raid is one of the biggest games, but if you think that's not because of their ad budget, then you haven't played enough games. There are...
No, again, I disagree as well. I think that I've seen a lot of comments recently, actually, believe it or not, from people. Like, I saw a few, because I did a video on, like, is Raid good in 2024? And a couple of the comments that struck me were players being like, I quit the game before, I came back to, I'm playing it again. It's got big problems, but it's just better than the other games. All right? Like, the combat is just better. The characters are just better. It is just a better game. Like, I don't think that Raid is successful just on its... I mean, that's a very difficult argument to make. I mean, you can make it if you want, but I think it's silly. More motivated by trying to make a point, in my opinion. Say that Raid actually sucks, it's all the ad budget. I personally don't think I definitely don't think that's true. I think I don't think any game is successful purely based off of ad budget, or it's going to be a short-term success. I think Raid having continuing long-term success, I think it's definitely in part due to the ad budget that gets new players in, but for people to actually stick around and play, some of it certainly is addiction. But other of it is that it's, you know, genuinely they do a lot of things well. They do a lot of things badly, but they also do a lot of things well, and better than other, like, mobile games and competitors as well. And it is also very hardcore, like I said, which is potentially a huge put off, but also potentially makes the game better for some people too. So it's a bit of a trade. I mean, here's like, if you hate the game because it's super hardcore, like, again, you can just quit. Like, if there's other games that do it better, go play those other games, you know? Like, it's my job to play this game. It's not your job. So you can just go play something else. Don't like it.
There are games just as good or better out than Raid. Raid's awesome. I want to make that clear. I don't hate Raid. I don't like Plarium. I think in spite of Plarium, there are a lot of things to enjoy about this game, but that can coexist with a disdain for the way the player behaves and treats their players. And I think that's where
I also disagree on that a little bit. That I don't hate Raid. I hate Plarium. I think they're very much interconnected, and I think that a game, Raid, is fundamentally a gacha game, and gacha games are fundamentally free-to-play gambling games that are trying to get you to spend lots of money, right? It's not just a once-off $60 or like $80 these days, or pre-order for like $100. Like lots of other games, very predatory practices as well. But, you know, gacha games are just inherently trying to get you to spend a lot of money. Like my understanding of Jay Giggs from seeing his videos, I'd be surprised if he really liked any gacha game, because they're all going to be predatory. It's just the genre, and I think that's fundamentally baked in. Like, you can't take the gacha out of Raid. Fundamentally baked into its entire design. So yeah, I think the two things are more interconnected than he thinks here, honestly.
People get confused. Every time I criticize Plarium, I have to deal with 7 or 8 comments on the video of, you hate the game, what do you play? I don't hate the game. I don't like Plarium, and I think most people understand that. So yes, the game is fun. There's a lot of cool stuff in the game. I think there's a lot of things Plarium does really well, and I talk about those periodically. But if you only show up to my rant videos, then you think I hate the game and you think I hate Plarium. So that is not the case. There's a reason I'm playing it. but Plarium's behavior, especially
He
in
does really
situations
good
like
free-to-play videos as well. One of the consistent content creators with covering like earlier gameplay and developing a new account. So if that's you, I know a lot of, not a lot, but there's a big chunk of my viewers that are like, Nub, the stuff you do is too endgame to be useful to me. Go check out JGig, seriously. And like Colrad, again, also great free-to-play player as well, and giving assistance to those types of players too. So like, I think that's something with any sort of established raid content creator. There's a sort of a natural inclination for your content, for your account. Obviously, the longer you play on the same account, the more developed it gets, the more end game it gets. So there's quite a natural inclination with any content creator to just become more end game as time goes on. So if you want to find more early game, you've got to have either guys like JGigs that put in that effort to make that type of content, or you got to, find other newer creators and go support the new creators. I think that's something really valuable too. It's going to be tough to find like a really good early game, new player focused channel that's really old, unless, it's just not as common.
Like this is just really obnoxious. It's really over the top and obnoxious.
And there was no information that would tell us otherwise.
Right.
There was nothing in our history together that indicated that there was anything more than that going on. And now what we're seeing...
I don't think... That's another point. Have they done this before? I don't think that they've... I'm not sure. Maybe they have. I don't think they've quite screwed us in this same way before. They've screwed us before many times. I don't think they've screwed us in this way before. This is a new one. Like, I remember they did the bonus summon rush in the Incarnate fusion, because I used that as a reference point when I was looking at the Thor fusion. But it was, like, early in the fusion, and it didn't have any... it didn't tie into anything else. So that was also surprising, that the precedent that they had set with the bonus summon rush was that it was not tied into a Titan event or anything. Then this one was. That was an extra sort of an extra trick, as it were. But yeah, I don't think they've done this exact
This is a combined event. It is part of the Fusion event, and it is likewise part of the Feyhammer Titan event. Now, by the way, you didn't announce the Feyhammer Titan event like ahead of time. You didn't give us the event map for that. You didn't announce the Thor Fusion event like calendar until it launched.
I mean, again, another question. How valuable are these event maps if they are going to lie in them? How valuable are they, really, to planning ahead? Clearly not very valuable based off of this. So.
You used to give us the calendar in advance. You used to give us 1 or 2 days warning, 3 days warning, so that we could plan. And you don't do that anymore.
I don't. They very rarely given calendars, if at all, for Titan events. For fusions, it's usually the day the fusion starts that we get the calendars. Maybe they did give us a calendar a couple of times actually for Titan events, but not always. Not always. They tend to do what they've done fairly consistently now is they tell you how many points are in each week, which is usually not very helpful. Like, it just gives you a bit of an idea. And like, you can guess there's going to be some artifact enhancements, some champion. It's all the same shit, right? And then it's like, okay, there'll be 2 big summoning events in week 1 and a big summoning event in week 2. It's always big summoning events. As JGig said, it's the stuff that you can buy that they're most keen to sell you.
And the only real reason is because you don't want us to prepare. Like, that's the clear implication.
Yeah.
That you used to give us time to prepare, and now you don't. And why would that be the case? Because letting your players prepare is treating your players with respect. It's helping your players. And not letting them prepare is a step towards tricking them.
And they have some aversion to letting us settle in. They don't seem to like the idea of us having any idea what to expect. They seem to like keeping players on their toes. And again, maybe there's something in the analytics that shows this is a good idea. I believe.
Yeah. I think that would be my guess, is that I think if you make everything too predictable and too simple, that it becomes boring. And by keeping players more on their toes and not knowing what to expect, I think that JGigs is right there. There probably is an analytical reason why that actually makes sense. I think a good example, World of Warcraft, which has been going for ages, definitely players expressing some frustration with, so they started making things much more consistent. And just everything coming out on a schedule, and you know what to expect. Oh, it's going to be like a new zone with a new raid, and new world content, and that's coming every couple of months, and blah blah blah. But definitely, like, players reaching a bit of a point where they go, that actually is becoming kind of boring. It's like, new expansion. Okay, it's going to be 4 zones with a raid and whatever, 8 dungeons, and it's the same thing every 2 years, and it's always the same thing. And yeah, initially it's kind of exciting, but then it can become really boring. and actually not that exciting. And with WoW specifically, they started throwing in some kind of more random events, try to spice it up a bit, and make it less predictable and therefore more exciting. But yeah, I think actually being too predictable can actually put players off long term. I think that's probably why they do it. Let's see what Jake says.
That they are purely revenue driven.
Yeah,
I know they're a business and they're supposed to make money, but there's a line, right? There's like a spectrum of being purely revenue driven and having a love for your game. And a lot of well, I don't know even if it's fair to say a lot of developers, but the developers that have good reputations, I should say, keep it much closer to the middle. And Plarium just clearly sits over here on the revenue side. They just clearly, everything they do, I believe, is driven by their revenue.
I don't know. That's always really tricky. I think that the developers themselves, like the guys actually working on the game every day, I think they've got a lot of love for the game. I mean, some of them, I'm sure, don't. Some of them probably hate the game. They're just doing it because it's a job and they got a job. You know, same with everything. But I think probably a lot of them do have a love for the game. And some of them that I've talked to definitely have a love for the game. But it's always that conflict. I mean, it's just modern society, right? It's how it works. You got to make money as well, and there is always that conflict. I don't know. A lot of it is just like polished. Like if I'm really enjoying Cyberpunk, for instance, right now. Like, did CD Projekt Red put so much work into fixing Cyberpunk just out of love of the game? Is it just out of love of the game? No, it's to get their reputation back. It's for The Witcher 4. It's for Cyberpunk 2, right? That is why they're fixing the game. Spending so much money, spent so much time fixing Cyberpunk 2077 is not because they're going to make enough money out of fixing it to make it worthwhile right now, but it's fixing their reputation for the future. So that, because going into Cyberpunk, you know, CD Projekt Red was like a golden child of the gaming industry. You guys are amazing. One of the best developers. Their games are crazy. And then Cyberpunk was a disaster when it launched, super buggy. They're fixing it to get that reputation back. Not just because they love the game, but because it's revenue driven as well. So this is an inherent conflict in everything, unfortunately, with society right now, just in general. I don't think you can escape it. You know, run away, live in the jungle. Might be nice.
Revenue graph. And anything that makes it dip, they stop doing, and anything that makes it go up, they do. And they're constantly making adjustments to it, and that's what I believe is going on. Do I believe
also, that's also something that when I talked to the devs, they said directly was that we try certain events in the game, we see how it does, what the engagement is like, what the retention is like. They look at analytics, and this is a problem as well with analytics. Analytics don't tell you everything. Like, you can have good analytics, but you are ultimately burning out your player base, or you are destroying goodwill. So, like, it is analytics, I think, is quite complicated. I'm not sure exactly how they look at them, but it is something that they definitely do. They try different things. Like, again, I think a classic one was they used to do loads and loads of guaranteed champion events, and then they stopped doing them. They like try things for a while, and I think that they try things even if they're not sure how good that they will be, just to see how it performs and how it doesn't. But they try that with lots of different events and lots of different things in the game. Like they'll try different fusion structures, all sorts of different stuff. Just hopefully this will be a clear one. Don't try this bullshit again. Don't try this bullshit again. If you tried it intentionally, this is a strong no from us. Thank you very much.
There are people at Plarium that care about this game? Yes. Do I believe that any of them are the people making the decisions for the game? No. I just don't think that. I think Siege is a perfect representation of that. Siege is a game mode that we've not only needed pretty much since launch. Since I downloaded Raid and learned there was no Clan Wars, I've been saying we're going to need Clan Wars at some point. That is the lifeblood of a lot of these games. That is what a lot of people take very seriously.
I haven't played it in many other games, so I do know that I think Ash was a huge proponent of it. That I think a similar thing was in Clash of Clans or Clash Royale. I don't know which one exactly he played, but one of the Clash games, Clash with Ash, his biggest channel. He was like, yeah, that was transformative for the game, so really exciting to see the same thing Raid.
Seriously, and get really into, we're going to need something like that. It took them over 5 years to implement it, and they literally copy-pasted Arena onto a different map. Except now your Arena Rs don't work. It is, it so clearly lacks any passion or interest in it being good. It is probably ripped from another game. The whole layout and format of it is probably ripped from another game.
I do agree. I think that they do rip things from other games. I think every game does that. They rip things off of each other. How many Souls-like games have I seen in my life? Way too many. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that. I mean, you don't want to plagiarize, but you can clearly take inspiration for game modes, and that could just make it better. That's fine. I I feel like Siege actually does have some good things going on. I feel like with Siege that they had a deadline to get new content out and they ran out of time, and that they've already moved on to other stuff is my vibe. That they did not have enough time to finish it in the way that they would have wanted to, I think. Because Siege is clearly unfinished. Like, it just doesn't work. Like, the whole Florin system and repairing and upgrading your buildings is fundamentally broken on multiple different levels. It makes literally no sense. They clearly didn't have time to finish it. They were just like, okay, well, we've got it in a working state. Like, it works fairly bug-free. It's functional. It's optimized with the game. You know, like, it runs well on the thing. It doesn't break. It works. Just, okay, we got to go. It's out. It's done. Time's up. Moving on to the next thing, guys. We got another deadline for December, whatever. Okay, what's coming up? I don't know. Next May. Come on. Let's go. Let's keep going. Live service game, right? I think Siege would have been a lot better if they could have delayed it a few months. But again, I think that that's not something they did. They were like, it's probably good enough. Let's just put it out. We got to have something. So I think that's what happened. That's my opinion. I mean, I think it's got to be very, very, very hard to do a live service game and have a regular cadence of content and have it all be top quality. Like, that's phenomenally difficult. It really is. And I think that it didn't work with Siege. My thoughts.
And they couldn't even be bothered to rewrite the code a little bit so that it's not arena again, that it's not 4v4. Every piece of PvP we have in this game is arena format.
That was a question I was asking you guys in the live stream the other day was, would it be cool to have like 3v3 or 2v2 or 5v5, like arena that's not 4v4? I think it's a genuinely interesting question, because maybe you could sit down, try 5 versus 5 arena for like 2 minutes and be like, oh my God, this sucks. I'd actually love the developers to come out and talk about that at some point. Be like, yeah, because I'm sure they've tried it, like 3v3 arena or 5v5 arena. Maybe it's absolutely awful and that the game is just balanced around 4v4. I'd be really curious to know. Because I mean, that's something that's impossible really to test. I mean, I certainly have no capabilities to test it. I guess you could, like with your friend, try to set up like 3 versus 3 arena defenses, but you can't fight each other. If they ever added like actual arena battling, you could do that. Maybe like personal challenges between each other. You could like, okay, let's do a 3v3 tournament. I guess you couldn't do 5v5 unless they allow that. But yeah, maybe it's dreadful. Maybe it's great. I don't know. Maybe 5v5 arena is the best shit ever, and we just will never know. Or maybe won't know for ages. I don't know. Maybe it sucks. Who knows, right?
That just screams, I don't care. Doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's just so obvious that they don't give a shit about anything but money.
You used to give us a benefit, and now you don't. And we're not stupid. We know that that's the case. And this is true, of course, with the Titan event. We didn't know this was coming, and we didn't know that this Summon Rush was going to be part of both events. So I spoke to my viewers. I did a Fusion Plan video, and I said, there might be some additional benefit here at the Summon Rush, but we can't count on it because we don't know.
Actually, one thing I'm going to jump in straight away is even before this, was it even before? But I know I saw comments for sure of people saying like, oh, the lesson I'm taking away from this is to skip the events earlier and always go for the bonus Summon Rush. Don't do that either, right? You also can't do that. Because, I mean, that's an obvious takeaway from this particular case is, oh, skipping the Summon Rush and the Champion Chase that were actually part of the Thor Fusion and doing this bonus Summon Rush was the better play. Cost less shards, better rewards. It was better, no question. But can you apply that to future fusions if they do a similar structure? You can't, because they could come around in a future fusion and make the bonus Summon Rush stuck. They can make it more expensive with worse rewards. Like, there's no guarantee, there's no written contract here that this is going to be the way it is going forwards. It's certainly something to watch out for and to look at as a potential thing that could happen, but there isn't a guarantee. So you can't look at this and go, always do the bonus Summon Rush. It will always be insane, and the regular ones will suck. That's not certain at all. So watch out for that.
And so I advised all of my viewers to go ahead during the Fusion event and complete the first Summon Rush and the Champion Chase.
That's what I advised.
And that's what I did personally.
Just play it safe.
With the expectation that these fragments here during this Summon Rush were extras, that they weren't necessary, that this event was a bonus event for people who maybe messed up the Fusion and wanted to spend a little bit of money to complete the Thor Fusion even though they messed up. Or it could be an opportunity to just get some additional resources if necessary. But now what you're saying is, hey, you want this Thor soul, you need to go and do this Summon Rush. So let's go look at that in game.
Well, I think to do it with minimal shards, like probably doing the champion chase and then assuming it's a deck of fate at the end is to do the deck of fate. Or probably max out this summon rush and skip the deck of fate. I would be worried, by the way, that the deck of fate could have like 300 fragments in it, and you can only skip 250 to get the 5-star soul. So you'd have to get some. And geez, getting 50 fragments out of a deck of fate, you could get it in one. You could need like 10 flips. You could need more. Like it's a shit show, honestly. So yeah, I don't know. Like possibly we'll walk away at the end of this and go, I don't know, but then again, Freya deck of fate's pretty tempting. This summoner should be. This is definitely what they do if they put in multiple really good shard events, so you end up doing them all and doing more than you want. That's clearly the setup for sure.
Like, here's your Fey Hammer Titan event and your Summon Rush. Good. Looks normal so far. But as soon as I go into the Summon Rush, what I notice is there are both hammer points for the Titan event and champion fragment.
It showed up in game. The Summon Rush, I'm 90% sure it showed up in game with the Thor Fusion banner and info, but no Titan event banner, and that the Titan event banner on the event was enabled later. I'm 90% sure that's the case. That is 100% the case with the event calendar and Plarium Play. I'm 90% sure that happened in game as well. I could be wrong.
For the Fusion,
I'm pretty sure.
Now I've already
changed the banner.
My information was that this was only fragments here, that I wasn't going to have to do this, and so I decided to play very well.
Yeah.
As well as I could, not miss a single event during the Thor's Fusion event, and complete my Thor Fusion without these champions.
I guess I didn't think specifically about that aspect.
And what you have now done is you have said, well, you can't really skip this event if you want the 5-star soul. There are only 250 free points, like extra points, right? You need 1,500 points.
So again, like if you're not going for the 5-star soul, you can easily skip this. If you are going for the 5-star soul, you can still skip it. There's 200 points in there. Just to be clear, there's 200 points. You can skip 250. So you can skip it, but it means you cannot skip anything else. So you definitely can skip this. Just to be clear, this is not an unskippable event, but it is very good with the faction unity extra legendary thing. Like it is very good. So that's sort of the other
here in the Fey Hammer Titan event to get this 5-star.
I don't think it's as big of a problem though as the lying. Like I think this event being really good, but you kind of skip it and feel bad and FOMO, like that's its own bad thing. But that's sort of expected for the game. I think that the lying, disclosing part of the event, but withholding crucial information, I think that dishonesty is worse, way worse. Like, I think that's genuinely a bad move. I think, creating FOMO shard events is expected.
There are only 1,750 available. There are 200 that are currently
exactly,
in this event that we didn't know would be here.
Skip it, but do you
and
want
so
to?
Now I have two choices. Either I can spend a lot of resources to try to get these 200 hammer points, 9 sacred shards worth of resources, and that's potentially going to impact my ability to complete the deck of fate down the line and get the guaranteed Freya. You did, in fact, tell us that it was coming at some point. You never gave us a date, by the way, because if we knew the date, that
I feel like I heard that mentioned weeks ago. Someone said something about the Freya deck of fate event. I feel like it was literal weeks ago.
Yeah, it was. So I believe they never told the content creators directly that it was going to happen. Never. But I believe what they did was that, like, players for other games doing promotions for Raid, I think got, like, press releases saying that there's going to be a deck of fate for Freya. I think that's how people heard about it. That's my understanding, is that they never told us, the official content creators, about it, but that they did tell other people in official press releases that there would be a deck of fate for Freya, and then that's how people heard about it. That's my understanding. So, yeah, but just to be clear, they never told us officially directly, which is in of itself, again, supplementing their points, really, especially Colred's point that they are intentionally like withholding information. I think that and preventing us from planning. Like that's clearly why. They clearly know there's going to be a Freya deck of fate. They're telling other people, but they're not telling the content creators that would tell their active engaged player base. They're trying to hide it from the player base. Like it's absolutely Colred's point here.
And I forgot about it. I remember seeing it mentioned every few days in a comment or somewhere. And I started like, what are people talking about? Like, because I don't read the news and stuff, so I don't pay much attention. I usually know what's going on because of my Discord or because of stuff like this. I kept forgetting that was a thing. Have they ever announced anything that far in advance? Did they even give any information about it? Or they're just like, at some point,
they never do.
Information that would allow us to be prepared and make informed decisions. And you want us at a disadvantage, so we have to mess up potentially.
It's the big thing too. Is the key word there was informed decisions. It's like they don't want you able to do that, which is so weird.
I think one really good example of that, which I find very frustrating, is the mercy counter, right? You have to manually track your mercy counter. Yeah, that should be something that's just in the game. And I guess it's not in the game because they think it makes them more money to leave it out. People don't know. But again, like to make your informed decision on when to pull, when to go for progressive chance events, you have to manually track it. And I think that they just leave it out because people will mess up. They will count their mercy timer wrong. They'll make, again, because it's like, it's, you know, it's a gambling behavior, right? It's like, ooh, shiny thing, I want it, I'm going to go for it. Surely I'm probably like 10 away from mercy, and you're actually like 50 away because you haven't tracked it. It's trying to exploit that psychology. I don't like that. That's bullshit.
The resources get spent. You know what I mean? But they really, really thrive on FOMO. It's like they need that.
Yeah.
It's like FOMO is their life force. They need it.
But I mean, there's gacha games. They're all like that. Genuinely, they're all like that. It's all FOMO. You need the new shiny character, get the new shiny character. That's what gacha games are, fundamentally. All the ones I've played anyway, they're all like that.
To thrive or something. It's so weird.
It's just the genre.
Because that's what you want. You don't want us to feel comfortable. You want us to be.
The benefit is you constantly get new shiny characters. There's always new shiny, exciting things coming. The downside is they're trying to sell them to you.
Uncomfortable.
On our toes.
And we know that. And this proves it. My other option is to skip these 200 points. And now for the next 2 weeks, I have to play near perfectly again.
Yeah.
I just completed a 2-week fusion. I now have to do another 2-week fusion, and I can't mess up.
So like, yeah, a month.
So I think that's a more fundamental problem. It is a problem, and it's fundamental to these events in general. It's as J Gigs mentioned earlier. That's how fusions are as well. You've got almost no room to screw up. Sometimes you've got literally none. Sometimes you got a tiny bit of wiggle room. But it's the same thing here. Like if we imagine that this summon rush was not part of the Thor fusion, it was just the summon rush that was part of which is what it would be anyway. And like we look at the other Titan events for stuff like this, they've had multiple summon events, and if you skip one at the start, you do have to play basically near perfectly and do everything else to get the 5-star soul at the end. It's really nasty. It's really tough. That's just a fundamental problem with the events. It doesn't have anything to do with this particular summon rush. That is a problem with basically every fusion and every Titan event, as was mentioned earlier.
A month of perfection, a month of being handcuffed to the game if you want the thing. And sure, you don't have to have the thing. That's an argument some people are going to make. Nobody says you have to have it. Yeah, that's true, I guess. Good point. That's a great point. You don't have to get the stuff in the game. True. But like, damn.
5-star soul.
I
could modify my expectations. I could drop down to a 4-star soul, sure. But you're forcing me to make that choice. You're saying you can take less. If you don't want to give us money, you can take less.
Yeah.
And the constant message is we only value those people who spend a lot of money.
Yep.
And even them, we don't value that much. We value just for an event. Just for this event, we'll value you. But we're going to hit you up again and again and again and again. And it's going to be nonstop at this point. Because if we just quickly look back at that event calendar for the last month, we can see your new philosophy on spending. I mean, it's super clear what you're trying to do. Today is the 17th. You can see that is highlighted in blue here. And we look and we have an extra legendary event, Faction Unity Summon. And it's
interesting. I've heard, for me, like, I don't spend a lot of money on the game. Like, so you guys know I buy the daily gem packs sometimes, the Forge Pass sometimes. I don't buy them every month, but, you know, every couple of months I buy them sort of on and off for both. And then recently I've been buying some Primal Shards as well because I quite enjoy that. So that's like a new thing in the game that's caught me for sure. Mythical Champions, they got me there. Apart from that, I don't really spend. So I'm not super up to speed in terms of what like spenders are experiencing, big spenders, but I have had a lot of big spenders say that the shop has become worse recently, that basically the packs are just more expensive for lower value, and that like you didn't have, basically it's, the spender situation is much worse than it was in the past. So that's just some additional info. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I've seen a few people say that, so it does seem to be true that they're selling, like, I think there was like these fairly good $60 packs or something that would come out every few days. Now those are gone and they're $100 packs instead. Right? You know, I think it's the same like ratio of value, but it's just you have to spend almost double. I mean, you can just buy them half as often, but you know, it's still, the point is that, you know, if you want to spend just $60 in one go, that's not as easy to do anymore. Yeah. Anyway,
have the summon rush here for the 17th, 18th. And 19th. And then starting on the 20th, we have a champion chase tournament for the 20th, 21st,
right now.
22nd, and 23rd. So from now until the 23rd, there is a shard event every single day. The portal will not stop glowing for more than a few hours, and then it'll be glowing again. Well, let's look at what happened earlier this month. We know we just completed a summon rush.
Oh, man.
For the Thor Fusion event. So that was the 13th through the 16th. And again, this current one started on the 17th. So again, we haven't had a gap of a day. We've had a gap of a few hours. That's it. Every single day has been covered. Well, what happened before that summon rush?
It's been pretty constant this year, at least. Definitely since they added prisms, prism summons. That covered a big gap. Like there could sometimes be a gap where that portal wasn't glowing. God help us. Prisms have really filled that in, and especially you include like soul events now as well. Yeah, there's constantly stuff to summon for. Again, to go back to something I said earlier, you have to play this game skipping a lot of events. Like, I mean, if you want to be efficient as a free-to-play or low-spend player, you have to skip a lot of them. Like, you can't do these all unless you're spending a lot of money, not even a little bit of money. You got to spend a lot of money to participate in every single one of these events. Like, if you want to properly participate in like a prism summon to get a headline champion, you're looking at $500 to $1,000. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just bonkers. People do it, but in my opinion, it's bonkers. But like that's the level of spending we're talking about, and that's for just one event. You need to go in expecting to skip a lot of these and just pick the best ones. That's sort of the point of our channels, I suppose, and giving advice in terms of what to go for to help people make that decision.
Let's back up. We can only go so far.
Really?
Oh, here's a progressive chance event.
Yeah, they're constant.
Which is a very
10th, 11th, and 12th, and then the summon rush.
Progressive chance events, again, in my opinion, is something when you're super close to Mercy, it's like, okay, I've got a boosted chance to get something good. That's it. Like, you never pull much on a progressive. It's just too expensive.
On the 13th, so there's no gap there.
Interested.
Let's go back a little bit further.
There's a champ chase right there.
What happened before the progressive chance event? Well, there was a sacred summon boost. That was the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. And again, the progressive chance started on the 10th. So there's no gap there. Let's go back further. We've got a summon party. That was the Odin event with the Void Summon boost. And that was the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So
it really makes the events non-events. There's always an event.
They have started doing... So with the Odin one, I believe it was the first time we had a 2x shard event midweek. Pretty sure. So that was new. They've also done a few... In the last few months, they've done a few Summon Rush events midweek. I mean, this bonus event is another example of that. A midweek Summon Rush. That's been pretty new as well. So those are new types as well that they've also injected in. So they injected in Prism Summons. They injected in other stuff. Obviously, CVC, they injected that in a few years ago now. You know, bonus summon events for CVC midweek. But midweek Summon Rush is fairly new. Midweek 2x events like we saw with Odin, that's very new. So, I mean, they absolutely are creating new progressive chance events or relatively new invention as well. So yeah, they're constantly coming up with these new summon events. Sure. Now we've got faction unity summon events as well. That's a new sort of thing too. They're constantly coming up. There's huge innovation. There's huge innovation in the game in terms of new summon events. Because again, that's the biggest driver of spending in the game. So there's constant innovation in that. And that's one of the things when I mentioned my speculation video earlier, I was speculating. I think it's quite an interesting question to speculate on what new mechanic can they add to the game that can be gotchified? Because they added in Souls a while ago now. So Souls is a whole new type of shard, like soul shard, basically, to summon, that you can buy. A whole new gotcha system to chase. My expectation is that they will add something like that as well. That'd be my bet. Something like that will be added as well at some point, too. I guess.
Then
until the 23rd of this month, there have been 0 days without a shard pull event. 21 days in a row, you have had a shard pull event. Every one of them has had FOMO built into them. Every one of them is an opportunity to get your players to spend money.
I mean, it's an interesting question as well. Like, I do think it's a thing with the shard because they're constant as well. If you have a bad shard event, it's just like, this event sucks, this is bad. If every shard event is good, then it's like, it's all bait. It's all FOMO. It's kind of tough. Like, I mean, the solution is just to have less regular shard events and have them all be good, I suppose. But Yeah, like if all the shard events are good, like I this is the thing with this Thor Titan event. I think all of them are going to be good. So I think you're going to have this summon rush with the extra legendary and the faction unity boosted. That's a good event. The champion chase is like 2x ancients with the 10x Doom Lord Gregor. That's pretty good. And then if it's a deck of fate for Freya, oh well, that's pretty good too. So it's multiple good events. And again, it's more efficient to skip some of them because that's so many shards. But you really want to do all of them. And they're, yeah, so, you know, and they've laid them out in a very clever way too. It's, again, very sus, where you've got the big expensive gambling event at the start, then you've got the cheap gambling event in the middle, and then you've got the expensive guaranteed event at the end. It's a very clever way of doing it. If you switch them around, if you did expensive guaranteed at the start, cheap gambling in the middle, expensive gambling at the end, people would do, I think, the first two, and then they'd skip the expensive gambling because it's expensive gambling, and so on. So yeah, they've been very sneaky in terms of how they've, if I'm right about Deck of Fate coming at the end, very sneaky in terms of how they've arranged this event.
And every one of them happens with the player base knowing that there is a guaranteed Freya somewhere nebulously in our future.
Isn't that interesting that they just like dangled that and then have done 21 days of consecutive summon events so that everybody has to summon, but also be like, should I be hanging on to these for Freya?
It could be next week. It could be next month. It's going to happen before the middle of November.
And so the funny thing is, again, they specifically didn't tell us about it. Like, I don't think they meant to tell us, so we're not supposed to know, but we would always suspect. And like, that's the thing. Even after guaranteed Freya, you can be sure that there'll be another guaranteed at some point. And the guaranteed champions can be really good. So it's really worth having a very big stockpile of shards at the ready in case they ever do a really strong guaranteed champion that you can do it without having to spend. Then once you've built up a stockpile, so like, I don't know, once you've got like 200 ancient shards, it's like, okay, now you can use your extra ones just as you want. But try to keep the 200. Or like sacred shards, try to keep 20. But, you know, any extra, okay, now you can spend them pretty freely. That sort of, you know.
This sick,
we don't know when. And that's the biggest thing. Like, you're constantly trying to put us at a disadvantage. You keep secrets from us in an attempt to get us to spend in unhealthy ways. That's why we don't trust you.
Yep.
And the truth of the matter is, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that.
You don't.
You don't have to do this. You don't have to act like this. We will happily spend money on games. We are built to spend money on games.
I spend money in every other mobile game I play. Literally every single other mobile game I play, I spend money in. I spend a lot of money in Summoner's War. I spend a decent amount of money in Sword of Convaleria. I downloaded the updated Big Win Football a couple of weeks ago and spent money in that. Every single mobile game I play, I will spend a little bit of money, just because that's kind of a thing I like to do. If I like a game enough to download it and play it all, I want to do something. You know what I mean? So I'll buy the starter pack or whatever it is. I am so happy. I'm so happy to spend money on a mobile game. I have no aversion to it whatsoever. And the idea of giving Plarium any money,
I do have a little bit of aversion to them. I do. I don't mind spending like I think spending like 30 to 60 bucks is fine. Like if I'm getting as much enjoyment out of a game and as much time out of a game as I did from like, I don't know, let's say like a Final Fantasy game or something like that. I'm like, okay, I don't feel bad about spending it. Or again, like, you know, World of Warcraft's monthly subscription, what, like €15 a month or something. And I could maybe spend that on a game and feel pretty good. I think when it goes beyond that, which all of these games are trying to get you to spend more than that, that's when I don't feel so good about it. And I know I have a bit of an aversion of very much to that aspect of gacha games in general. It's something I just don't like in any of them in the genre, is the amount that they try to get you to spend. Or just in gaming in general. It's just, gaming in general is just moved in just an annoying way to try to get money out of you. Again, to give the World of Warcraft example, something they've done, which lots of games do now, is the pre-order early access. So it's like, well, if you pre-order like this deluxe edition of the expansion, you get to play like 3 days. So like pay twice as much money and you get to play like 3 days earlier. Like, gosh, most of my guild did that. Most of my guild bought it, and I'm like, wow, I didn't do it. I'm like, screw that. I'm not doing it. That's something that's, again, in many games now, paid early access. Yeah, all that stuff. Again, it's just throughout the whole gaming field. It's just there's more stuff to spend, more shitty things to spend money on. It's just all over. So I don't like that. So that's an aversion I have to spending money in games. Like, there's definitely a lot to be said for the good old days where it was like, you spent $60 and you got your full, finished, quality. Not always. Some of them sucked, right? But yeah, like you got, I know you bought Legend of Zelda. Bam, you've got, I mean, that's like $80 now or something. It's more expensive, but hey, at least you pay it and you get the full finished game, top quality game, and it's done. There's no hidden costs or expenses, extra stuff they're trying to squeeze out of you. Like, I mean, Ubisoft are notorious for the extra costs, right? Oh, shit.
I just cannot get behind.
General.
I've had a lot of people request that I do like a small spender series alongside Free to Succeed to kind of measure the difference.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
A few things like that would involve spending a little bit of money. A lot of people wanted me to buy some Void charts to keep the Void series going, and I'm like, I
think being a low spender massively improves the quality of the game because you're just a lot less stressed about energy and resources for fusions. Like spending a little bit makes a lot of difference. I think spending a medium amount of money doesn't make a massive difference, honestly. And then you have to spend thousands. Like I said, I mean, to get the headline champion now, that's a new thing too. The headline champ of a Prism Shard, you're looking at hundreds, not 1,000. That's how much you're looking at. Not a little money. It's a lot of money to have an actual impact. So yeah, you don't get far. But I think getting your daily gem pack and the occasional Forge Pass, like I said, doing that sort of stuff, that makes a big difference. I think
just don't want to. I just don't want to give them any money. The
game is designed, I think, to be really, really hard to play, free to play. I think it's really designed that spending a little bit of money makes a big difference to your stress levels. I
don't think they deserve any money at this point. Nothing about their behavior makes me want to give them any money. Like, I cannot.
For me, the way I look at it, by the way, I get probably more enjoyment. Yeah, I do definitely get more enjoyment out of Raid than I do from World of Warcraft. So I can happily spend as much money on Raid as World of Warcraft and feel 100% fine because I enjoy the game more, and like I've got a whole channel on it, so it's a whole different thing. Like it's a different thing when you're a content creator. But if I was just a player, not a content creator, I could happily spend that much money. Be like, okay, I get as much out of it as this. Fine.
Not support it.
Depends where you're at, right?
And he talked about being like forever the optimist at the beginning of the video. I have this idea that at some point they're going to turn it around. At some point they're going to change their strategy. At some point they will have made enough.
That sounds bad, man. That sounds bad. That's like that sounds like, you know, the abused wife. Like, maybe he really loves me, you know. He's been beating me every day for 5 years, but maybe he'll stop one of these days. No, man. That sounds toxic to me.
Money that they can settle in and start really making this game everything that it could be. There's still something in my head for some reason that thinks that's going to happen at some point. And again, it's not that the game's not fun.
Now, I will say that something I think that has changed in the game this year. There's obviously been more aid stuff for sure. I think Colred has really shown that directly here. Definitely, they've upped the capacity for people to spend on the game, 100%. Now, on the flip side, there's a positive to that as well. They've also been improving quality of life. I think that the game, it's you know, when they went to profit mode on the game, it's like, you know, they're not in this massive growth phase, developing a new game, developing a whole new player base. It's like the game has been around for over 5 years at this point, right? The game is well established. There's a well-established player base. I think there's a bigger focus on player retention. And I mean, clearly they do stupid shit like this, which drives people away. But they've also been trying to put in quality of life stuff, like, you know, gear presets and stuff like that. That's not, you know, gear presets is not making them a bucket load of money. It's not a quick cash grab. That is like a long-term cash grab, right? It's long-term quality of life to keep players happy and keep them playing the game after all these years. So there's definitely, I think, a focus on quality of life improvements and player retention that has happened more recently. And that's good for any long-term player. It means you're going to be generally treated a bit better, and there's going to be more stuff added to the game that's beneficial for you, and less of a focusing on like big advertising and drawing in new players and yeah, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, you get the gist.
As it is, but we're really not even talking about the game, as weird as that sounds. We're really talking about Plarium and their tactics and the way that they engage with us. That's really what the conversation is. And so I think that's also why I get aggravated at the, if you hate Raid, why do you play? Because I'm not talking about Raid. I'm not really even talking about Raid. We're talking about Plarium.
Like I said,
and when we're talking about Plarium, we're talking about a few people. That's another thing,
more
too.
fundamentally connected.
I don't want every Plarium employee that ever hears us gripe about this think that we hate them. I understand that it's probably 8 people tops that are responsible for this. I don't know.
Yeah, like the poor like tech support guys, just like, I just fixed the PCs. And we're like, screw you, man, freaking Plarium employee, we hate you, bro. I don't even know what the game is, man. I just make sure that the I just connect the PCs. Screw you. Suck. Hate you.
What the structure is. I don't know how that works at that level, but I know that it's a few people. I know that it's not most of them. I know that it's not the YouTube community managers. I know that it's not the artists. I know that it's not the people working on the game. It's the people making the strategic decisions on how to make money and how to engage with us. Those are the people that I have a problem with, and that I think need to be.
It's hard to know. Like I if you want to point fingers at people, like I think it's really difficult because it's very, very much like, and it's all made up. Like you don't actually know what people do. You don't know what their actual workflow is. You don't know what their team structure is. Really, you've got no idea. You know, if something bad happens in the game, you don't actually know where it comes from. I mean, we love to just say, oh, it's the suit's in charge. But again, that's just made up as well. Like you don't actually know. You can guess, but you don't actually know as well. So that makes me more reluctant to point very specific fingers at people, because it's like you might be pointing a finger at somebody that actually doesn't have anything to do. Who knows?
I don't know.
Who knows?
Educated. Because it would be worth, I feel
Maybe
like it would be worth the
someday.
experiment, at least for 6 months, to see how much money they would make if they didn't behave like this. If they gave everybody a heads up, if they stopped trying to snatch money out of our wallets, if they stopped trying to milk us of our shards and put us in positions to not have what we need to participate in the game, if they would stop doing that for a few months and just see if it changed anything about how much money they make. Maybe they'd make less. Maybe they would. But I know a lot of people, myself included, who are basically, I mean, I don't know if I wouldn't spend money on the Free to Succeed account, but like, I know a lot of people that are waiting to give them money. Waiting on them to turn it around so that they can give them money again. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people in my community that have said that. So I understand that my community is not necessarily a reliable gauge for the overall analytics of the game, but there is a sentiment out there among a lot of people that they don't want to give them money strictly because of the way they behave, and they would be happy to give them money if they behave differently. Whales are going to spend. Whales are going to buy what whales are going to buy. You don't have to strong arm them into it. It's the lower tier spenders that they're trying to bully in. It's the people that are okay enough spending if they need to. That's the people that they're trying to strong arm in. I feel like those people would probably still spend a decent amount, and you get.
I'm very curious about that as well. I think probably whales are the biggest focus, actually. Like I think that the low spenders is obviously. I'd be curious actually. What is the breakdown? You know, in terms of the spending, but like low spenders, you obviously got a lot more low spenders than you've got whales or potential low spenders. It's a much bigger group of people, but they're spending a lot less. I would actually think that whales are bigger. Like I do. It's not like a saying that like 90% of your customers will account for 10% of your income, but then 10% of your customers will be 90% of your income. I've heard that before. I've no idea if that's substantiated at all, but I mean, I would expect that. I would think that whales and krakens is probably at least 60%, if not more, of the income. And I think that is going to be, therefore, their 60 or more % of their focus. I think that I don't think that their biggest focus is going to be on getting money out of low spenders. I'm sure that's a decent chunk of money, but I don't think that's the majority of the income for the game. I mean, I could be wrong. I could be totally, I'm like, maybe it come out and it's like, no, actually, you know, low spenders is 80% of the income, maybe. But my suspicion is that it's big spenders that are by far the majority of the money, would be my guess. And that's the focus, very much so, is getting big spenders. Because I mean, like I keep mentioning, a Prism event, you're talking $1,000. That's one event, yeah? Not a small amount of money. Yeah, like, yeah.
A lot of new spenders if you stop acting like this, but
our gamers.
I don't know if they care, honestly.
We are passionate about our games. We want to support good developers. And good developers, in our mind, are developers who give us value in return for our money and treat us with respect. They listen to us.
Yeah.
They listen to our feedback. They don't have to take all of it, but they listen to it. They care about community, and they care about our in-game experience. And for a while, it felt like you did. There have been quality life improvements in the last year that have been greatly appreciated.
Yeah, like I said, this is true. I'm curious what he's going to say about it, but I couldn't think of too many examples off the top of my head. But I do think that it has been a focus. I think it's something that they genuinely tried to do better this year, and you can say how well they did or not, but I think compared to this time last year, I put out the poll on it, people are feeling more positive at this time. This poll was before this whole controversy, and I actually saw lots of comments of people saying I would change my vote because of this controversy. But I did the poll before it, and before this kicked off, people were, the majority opinion was that I think about a third of people were feeling a little bit over a third of people are kind of neutral. Like, I feel about the same about the game as I did this time last year. I think about 15% were like, I'm more negative. And then I think it was whatever's left, like what, 40% or 50% or something, where like, actually, I feel more positive about the game now than I did at this time last. So like, I think that, like I said, that ties into what I was saying about what I have seen as a focus on player retention and on trying to be better and do better quality of life. Like, there has been a focus on that, but clearly they are not always succeeding. And it can be a case of like 2 steps forwards, potentially like a big step backwards, you know? And that's something that they can 100% improve on. Like, I think this event has been dreadful. Yeah, obviously. Let's see what Colbert has to say about the...
Appreciate it. The player base is happy about those. You've gone back to regularly buffing champions that are subpar. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The filters for gear and champions have been improved. You've added good new content to the game. It's not perfect. You're still working on it. We appreciate that.
And again, going back to a Jay Giggs point that I disagree with, I don't think they're improving this stuff because they love the game. And gosh, they have so much respect for the players. They're doing it for the same reason that they weren't doing it before, which is it's the same thing for both, which is the way the world works. They're trying to make money, but it's just a different approach. It's an approach that's focused more on player retention than on quick cash grabs. But there's still a bit of both going on. But same motivation, it's the same impulse, it's the same people, the same morality, it's the same thing. It's just it's a different approach that much better outcome for the type of viewer presumably that you are and the type of player I am.
This mentality is still the same. That casino mentality of not thinking of your customers, your players as colleagues, that we're in this endeavor together, but rather looking at us as dollar signs.
Yeah, not seeing us as supporters, because that's ultimately what we are. If no one's playing your game, you don't have a game. You know what I mean? We're supporting the game, and I don't necessarily think that means that they owe us anything. I think the exchange is made. They've made a game we enjoy playing. Thus, in turn, we play the game and they garner success. Right? I think the exchange is complete. But I think there's a way to...
I think with a lot of companies, by the way, I think a lot of companies that you think of as, they really do care about us. You know, they have a ton of respect for us. I think really the difference that in most cases, I'm going to be cynical here, the difference in most of those cases is simply that they have a bigger budget and a bigger department for like personal relations, right? For public relations, sorry, for public relations. That's all it is. It's just better PR. That's all. It's the same motivations behind it, the same type of people behind it. It's just they've invested more in better public relations and to appearing to care more about you. I think that's probably generally true about just society in general. I think that's fair to say.
From that point, behave and treat the people playing your game, and they are incredibly manipulative. If you had a personal relationship like this, I would like to think that most of you would not be okay with it.
You would hope so.
This is such a manipulative, toxic relationship that they garner with their players, and it's just aggravating. That's why there's a sentiment. That's why rant videos are some creators' most viewed videos, because a lot of other people feel this way. A lot of the community feel.
There's more to it than that as well. There's more to it. Again, the internet thrives on outrage and negativity. This is a well-known thing. You know, negative headlines sell more papers. And that's the way it is. I think that, by the way, is a much bigger problem with the world than one little game company, putting in FOMO and making you like pull all your shards. I think it's a much bigger problem than that, much more universal problem. It's just the fact that negativity sells more. It does.
Feels like Plarium does not. I don't want to say doesn't know how, because I don't believe that they don't know how. I think they choose not to have a better relationship with their players. They've had so much time to learn through trial and error what is the right thing to do and what is the wrong thing to do, and they continue to do the wrong things. That cannot be a mistake. That cannot be incompetence. That's a clear decision. It can't be incompetence this far in.
I mean, that's a fair argument. Again, I was saying earlier, it might be, it might not be. He's putting through a strong argument that, it can't be. It's too consistent. It's too consistent to be just that. Okay, fair point.
They've had so many people to tell them, express in clear detail what the problems are with what they're doing, and they're choosing to continue to do them and do them worse as time goes on.
And so I said I was going to tell you how to fix this problem, and I am going to tell you how to fix this problem. Ooh. It's really simple. You only need to do a few things. Just a few things. First and foremost, start informing us ahead of time. Let us know what is coming down the line. The reason we're so mad about this is because you didn't tell us. If at the beginning of the Odin event, you had said, this bonus Summon Rush event is also going to be the launch of a new Thor Titan event.
Yeah, the Thor event. Yeah, 100%, yeah.
And it's going to include hammer points for the soul. Then what everybody is going to start thinking is, that's really good value. I'm going to save some shards for that event. And maybe, yes, you will lose a little bit of money on the Summon Rush in the middle of the Thor Fusion event. Maybe the Champion Chase doesn't pull in quite as much money. But what's going to happen?
But like when you put in good summon events, like people want to pull for this summon event just because it's good, right? The extra legendary, the faction unity boost, it's just a good event. People want to do it because it's good. You can make good events, no problem.
Happen is all of that money is just going to shift here. It's not going to be lost. It's simply going to shift over here, and players are going to be happy about it. And by the way, based on what's going on in game, they're still going to pull more shards than they would have otherwise.
And again, not only will that money shift to somewhere else, but you'll get a whole new influx of money from people who appreciate that shit. I guarantee you, there's a substantial amount of people that are just.
I will say I find these arguments weaker. I do. I find a very strong argument about this is what I as a player enjoy more, and this will make me trust you. This will make me happier in the game. I think that's a very strong argument. I think making these arguments about if you do this, this will make you more money, I think those are very weak. I think you have to give a lot of evidence for it. I don't think the evidence for that is here. I think it's really more based on Fieldscraft, to be honest. And like, I mean, they've got, they're a big company. They've got a lot of people that care a lot about how much money they're making. Ultimately, at the end of the day, they are far more informed about what is making them good money than these individual people behind a webcam can be, right? So I find that's not a if you're genuinely trying to convince Plarium of something, I don't think that's a good argument at all. I think it's very strong, though, to be like, this is how I, as a player, feel, and this is how my community feels. That's strong.
You figured out, and not just one good thing, but I mean, like when they display a pattern of behavior that shows a change in the way that they view us and treat us, I promise there's a lot of people that are going to spend money again. Guarantee it.
Without changing any of the events, you've gone from people looking at this as deceived, as you've deceived us, to, hey, this is an opportunity for a whole lot of extra value. But only if we know ahead of time. And that's what I think you're not seeing. That's why I said I don't think you saw this coming. You probably look at this and you're like, hey, this is an event that's got a lot of value for players. They're going to be happy about it.
Well, yeah, there is something to that. That like, are we screwing them over, not telling them it's part of the Titan event? No, not really. You know, they'll be like we're making a really good event though, so they won't mind. Like that's where I could see them like messing up. That's where I can see the incompetence. You know, it's like not quite right. I could see that. It's possible.
But you're not giving
us sure, but it's possible.
Information to make good choices. You are forcing us to reach into our wallets to make up for the fact that you put us at a disadvantage in the first place. All it takes is information. Give us the fusion calendar 3 or 4 days before the fusion. Let us know.
Yeah, we would love that.
What's coming down?
The reason that they don't do that, and I can understand it, is that it's always subject to change, right? And this is a problem just with roadmaps in general. It can be quite tricky because if you don't deliver on the roadmap, it's like you lied to us. I mean, that's exactly the thing about telling us about this bonus summon rush in advance, but you didn't tell us that it's like you lied to us. It's changed from what it was initially. Even a few days in advance of a fusion, like stuff could still change, right? You know, like they're still working on stuff. Like if the patch gets delayed a day and stuff shifts around, dude, like we don't know their workflow in terms of when stuff is completed and ready to be shipped, and when all like the live ops, like the events and stuff are decided on and confirmed, and you know all that stuff. So that's the reason they give anyway. I do think that they could give us the calendar maybe a day in advance. That'd be nice. And that doesn't seem like it'd be that difficult to do either. Like surely it's locked in 1 day in advance. But again, not 100% sure what the workflow is. But I mean, certainly if you go like give us a fusion calendar a week in advance, it's probably not possible. I don't know.
Down the line, a month in advance or 2 weeks in advance. Populate this calendar here, not on the day of, but the week before. Let players know what to expect.
The problem is they know all this. There's no shot they don't know all this. It's a decision. not to do it. Unless they fire and rehire someone to do this every single time there's a fusion, there's no way that they haven't learned. like the person in charge of this gets fired and rehired every couple of months and it's a new person. There's no shot they don't know this. They don't want to do this.
Feedback, and they can feel like they're not being deceived. There's some other thing. But honestly, that's all it's going to take. That's all it's going to take. If you do that, it's a shift in philosophy from...
I'd actually like to hear Colorad's other ideas. Colorad, he's great. He's got a lot of good ideas. It'd be cool to see his other ideas.
Feeling like your player base are your marks, that you are con men trying to separate your players from their money. And it's going to...
A lot of other games I play have ongoing event calendars like this, but for the whole game. It's not for a particular event. We have event calendars for the event of a fusion. But they have an event calendar that you can go... how far in the future you can go varies from game to game, but it's several days, usually at least. And you can see every event that's coming for the next, like a week in advance, whatever. Every single event. So you can plan everything that you do around what's going on in the game. When we find out events are coming in raid, when we get a...
Yes, I mean, if that makes it definitely seem like it's a much more intentional decision with raid to not reveal as much ahead, for sure.
Red dot on the event tab, and
potentially different workflow, potentially decision.
Why? Why? It's not even like the events are good. That's the problem too, is that the events themselves, like we do them all when they're in conjunction with a fusion or in conjunction with something else that we want to complete, but the events themselves fucking blow. Like, they're boring and uninspired. I've been talking about this for years. The events...
Yeah. Hands up if you enjoy Dungeon Divers. Wait, nobody put their hands up? What?
It's
crazy.
And not only do they suck, but we also don't get any notice they're coming. they just pop up. It's just red dot city every evening for me anyway. I don't know what time they pop up for y'all, but
they turn it around to you're
other games to let you know everything that's going on.
A merchant who has a supply and a consumer base who wants that supply, and you provide good value and you provide good customer service, and they keep coming back. That's the change in philosophy. And this is all it takes. This isn't really all it takes. It also wouldn't hurt to lower your prices on shards a little bit. But if you didn't even do that, if all you did was just be upfront and honest with us and not pull like this every once in a while, we would trust you more. And when we trust you and we like your game, I promise you, we will spend money. But until then, I'm going to stay free to play because I don't trust you.
Did he bleep that, or did Jake Giggs bleep? That's what I want to know. Who bleeped what?
I'm going to recommend to everybody who watches my channel to be as careful as possible with their money. Live the free-to-play life if they can. And if they want to spend wisely, spend carefully, and never, ever trust Plarium until they prove that they are trustworthy.
December's coming up quick.
And maybe that's going to keep me out of the content creator program. But honestly...
You don't need to be in there.
That's more than worthwhile for me to trade.
He's not in there. That's actually crazy. Like, Colorad absolutely deserves to be in there. I can understand, like, excluding people if they are, like, promoting cheating or whatever, but Colorad is just... He's a great guy. He's a great content creator. Same with Saf as well. Like, I think they definitely deserve to be in, 100%. I mean, Jay Giggs would deserve to be in. He left it because he didn't like it, and then he said, you don't need to be in there. So it depends. It depends on what you want. Like, the good thing about being in the CC program, you get the test server and the news access early. The community managers are really great as well for chatting to, and, you know, if you got questions about, how this is supposed to work. So I think it's a good CC program, but you don't need to be in. But it's a pity. If Colrad wants to be in it, in my opinion, Colrad has more than shown for months now that he deserves to be in. Real.
I don't mind. I'll stay on the outside looking in if this is what it takes. Because I don't want to be inside of that. I don't want to be on the side that has to defend that. I don't want to be on the side that says that is fair and good.
He's about to hit 10K subscribers. You don't need to be in there.
And gamers are smart people. Gamers are really smart, and
you don't have to do anything, by the way. Like, as far as I know, you can say whatever you want, really.
And you lost players today. I guarantee you, however successful this event happened.
I think for me, that's the biggest thing. I think that this will ultimately be considered a really big fail. If that is true, and I'm pretty sure it is true, that you will have lost players, you will have lost spenders because of this, because of that erosion of trust, a betrayal of trust. Because of that betrayal of trust, that will have a negative impact, I think, their income, most likely. Maybe it's too small for them to notice. Maybe they don't care. But I think that it's a pretty bad thing. I think that it's something that, that they will take seriously. Like the managers in there, like, you know, the community managers, like the game directors, etc., that they will be like, okay, no, this actually is a big problem. We can't fix it in the past, but we need to make sure this doesn't happen again. I do expect that to be the case. I very much hope it's the case. Maybe I'm being too positive hoping it's the case. But I think it will be the case that I think that this shouldn't happen again because yeah, I don't know. I'm still torn 50-50 in terms of whether it's something they did on purpose and like, ha ha ha, it seems so dumb versus it's just like they messed up like some incompetence in terms of planning and that like they didn't realize. Yeah, I don't know. I'm torn. I'm torn between the is it on purpose or is it a mistake? I don't
Happens to
know.
be. There are players who will never log into this game again because of this event.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. That's all. That's all I have to say. So,
and even like on the smaller end, there's going to be players that will keep playing the game and nothing will, but they might be like pissed off and just even not spend for the next month or two. They might be like, well, F that. They'll get over it in like a few weeks, but for a few weeks, they're pissed off and not engaging as much. And you have the potential when a player's not engaging as much, even for just a week or two, you've got the potential that player could pick up a different competitor game, get sucked into it, and stop playing your game as much, stop spending as much in your game. Like, there's potentially a big risk to this slip up. Really, there is.
Yeah, great video, man. I'm in full agreement with a lot of it. I think
and likewise to you, sir, Jay Giggs. Likewise to you.
Is what we think the sentiment is behind it. At times, I think they know full well what they're doing, and I don't think that they're surprised about the. I think they live. I think they live for the backlash. Again, that's all speculation. It's hard to really know.
I said, I'd probably be more on the Colrad side than the Jay Giggs side here, I think. But I mean, I'm not, like I said, I'm still somewhat 50-50. Like, I'm not discounting the Jay Giggs possibility. I find it's a hard sell. Again, I find it's a hard sell to imagine that they want that much negativity. Like, I think, yeah, I think it's so shitty to experience, to be on the receiving end of negativity like that. I don't know. I find it hard to imagine. I could be wrong though. Could be wrong. But I find it hard to imagine.
When I say they, it's a very small group of people. I don't think the hundreds of employees in the Plarium office are all gathered around hooting and hollering because the players are upset. I think a lot of them are probably very aggravated about it too. I think that
dude, when I got to visit the Plarium offices, man, they had like pictures of just like players. They had hunted them down on Facebook. And they just had pictures of players and they were throwing darts at them. Like some employees were just defecating on pictures of the players, burning them. They had effigies of the like specific players. It was crazy, like sacrificing some of them to Satan. And like, oh my God, it was all happening in there. It was a bloodbath. It was crazy. Not true, but I'm joking. Just in case.
I would venture to say that the community managers and the artists and the
they
people
were sacrificing them to Buddha, obviously.
Actually put in a lot of effort are probably pretty aggravated about all this stuff too. Because this game could be really great. It could be so much more than what it is, and the sentiment could be. You could cultivate such a different.
My view on the game, to touch on that, the game could be great. It could be so much more. I don't really think the game could be that much more. I think the game is what the game is. Honestly, I think it's. In my opinion, it has sort of been probably steadily sort of improving overall, like in terms of quality of life stuff and some of that things, and more content added in. Then, like, as the game goes on, it's a weird game. A gacha game is a weird game as it develops because your account gets so developed, etc. But I think the game, generally speaking, the game is the game, and it hasn't changed radically. I think we can see small, tangible improvements, like Colbert was talking about. Small, tangible improvements to our enjoyment, our interaction with the game, our interface with it. But I sort of fundamentally feel like the game, it's just Raid is what Raid is, and it has always been, and it's just that sort of game. I don't think it's going to drastically change in any meaningful, really. Well, no, I don't think it will drastically change in like an objective way, but I think it can change a decent bit in a meaningful but small way, which is how we interact with it and that level of trust, player developer. And like Colrad said, I think that it had been feeling a bit that way. I think they put effort into it in the last year. But it has to be that consistent, steady effort. Like, I think it's important not to dismiss the effort and the quality of life stuff that they've done because they do like one or even two things, even a few things that are really shitty. Because again, like if you imagine it's not a real relationship, but if you imagine a relationship, if your relationship's not great, if you're putting in effort to make it, even some effort to make it better, if that is dismissed entirely because you're still not great, it becomes really difficult for people to keep putting in the effort to make it better. So I think it's important to be fair and to acknowledge fairly the stuff that people are doing to make things better and also the stuff they're doing to make things worse. I think that's the best way to go. Give a fair appreciation to both. And I think that helps people to be the best that they can. It's my take on that.
Relationship with your players if you cared to at all. And they just don't seem to care to. Everything that they do says that they do not care, right? I can't say definitively how they feel about anything, but I can form an opinion based on their behavior, and their behavior regularly tells us they are not interested in having a good relationship with us. They're interested in handcuffing you to the game, keeping you in the game as much as possible to keep their analytics up, and strong arming you into spending money when you inevitably have something go on in your real life that does not.
I do think it's a problem, not only with Raid but with lots of games. Analytic driven approach. I see it in multiple games, and I do feel like they're that was very much again going back to World of Warcraft. That was, I think, very much a case where they were too analytics driven, and analytics have flaws. They're not perfect science, and it led to the game being worse. I think in BFA was a great example. I love that expansion. It's probably my favorite expansion, but it was objectively kind of bad. But they had like crazy time commitments, crazy grinds in it. And I think they had good analytics saying like people are playing the game a lot, but it burned a lot of people out and it made a lot of people quit. So yeah, I think that's always, I think it's certainly a threat to Raid and its player base. I think it's a threat to every game and its player base being analytics driven and just analytics not being quite perfect. Yeah, maybe focusing on some of the wrong things as opposed to, I think it's why community managers and a good community team is really important, actually. Getting that direct feedback from players, having a more human understanding as well of your typical players and what they care about, what matters to them, and having that more human aspect as well inform your decision making is really important.
It affords you the ability to finish a small piece of whatever puzzle you're trying to complete that has no real extra pieces, right? If you miss a piece, then you just don't get to complete the puzzle. So that's what it seems to be, and I have no reason to feel any differently about it until they give me a reason to feel differently about it. So anyway, again, I'm gonna link Cole right down below. He's closing in quickly on 10K, which I think is so cool. I remember it wasn't long ago
as well.
He had 2,000 something. I think it wasn't long ago. It was a few months ago. So he's growing pretty quick, man. That's good to see because he's been working hard. He does a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of really fun stuff, really helpful content, and he's just a solid dude. I'm a fan. I'm a Cole Red fan for sure. So I'm gonna link his channel below. Go show him some love.
Hell yeah! All right, great. That was a great video. Again, I highly recommend both Cole Red Plays and get him to 10K. Oh, that's cool. I'm a bad YouTuber. I didn't realize you could do that. That's cool. Get him into 10K. Well, he's actually closing in very quick. Well deserved. Jay Gigs as well. Brilliant. I highly recommend subscribing to both of them, checking out both content. Both fantastic content creators. Neither one in the content creator program either, but more deserving than most probably if they wanted to be in them, to be honest. But yeah, there we go. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this debate. It's been a long old video, but we like a long old video from time to time. But yeah, that's sort of my take on this whole debate. It's been very interesting one. I'll see you all next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.